And welcome back to Tech Tuesday. I'm Steve Leahy. Today's Tech Tuesday is when to make the decision on a painting or a project to cut your losses and start over. But first, I want to thank the sponsors of this video, and that is you guys. I really want to thank you all who have decided to become members here, like these lovely people, also on Patreon who sponsor me there. You guys really keep the ball rolling here. You guys keep the lights on. I really appreciate it. Of course, the other way you can support what I do here is the free way, which is great too. So all you do is hit the like and subscribe and click that bell for notifications. Okay, back to Tech Tuesday. So the example is you're working on a project and something big goes wrong. So what do? What do I do? So the first thing I do, number one, most important thing, is to stop and just relax and then just reset. Hit that big reset button. A lot of times when we get in the middle of this and something like this happens and it's big, the stress level goes to the roof, and if we make a decision during that high stress period, you tend to miss things. You tend to miss options on fixing it or moving on or getting around it, and you tend to make it worse. Let me rephrase that. I tend to make it worse. So the first thing I do is I stop and I just take a step back. And that's the best course of action. It really gives me a chance to reset and think about things and then figure out what will work best. So the second thing to do is to then really evaluate what happened and whether that can be pushed into something different, something that you weren't expecting. For instance, you drop green on what you're working on, and you didn't intend that green to be there. So now you add more green and parts of this thing now become abstract and push you way out of your comfort zone, but you develop something new. You develop a style that you had no idea about. Sometimes that can be a really good thing. Now, obviously, if you drop green on a portrait and someone is expecting a traditional portrait, you can't get away with that. So that's the other thing to think about too. Will this push you in a way that is going to make things not as good for the final result of the painting? So that's the second thing I do, because if you don't have to fix it, if it just makes you a better artist, makes you a stronger artist, or gives you new techniques, it's a total win. Okay, so if that's not an option, the third is to look at the actual repair. So the first thing I do is I try to decide, is it going to take longer to repair it than to start it over? The longer you do this, the more tools you have in your toolbox on how to fix things. I often say that a painting for me is finished when I've fixed the last mistake. There's things going wrong all the time. And one of the things experience affords you is the ability to fix those mistakes because you've been through them before and you've wrestled with them before. So the longer you go, the more you can kind of make that judgment, but you can make that judgment right away. Sometimes it's just out of your wheelhouse to fix, and it's easier to just start over. I can look back at many paintings of mine in the beginning that was the option, to just restart it. It wasn't worth trying to figure out how to fix it. The other thing too is how long it's going to take you to fix it, and do you have the time to fix it? Learning to fix a problem like that is something that we all need to go through. So if you have a problem like that and you're able to take the time and try to fix it, you're going to add that repair knowledge to your toolbox. And that's a really good thing. Now, it may get to a point where this project just needs to be done and you can't take the time to do that. It's not the time for a learning experience. So you need to restart. So that's kind of how I evaluate the current disaster that's going on. So I have an example for you, and I'd like to show it to you and kind of go through the cascade of disasters with it and where I'm at right now with it and the decisions I made. So let's switch over to the bench and we'll take a look. Here is the painting in question, the painting series now, I guess, in question. So the idea for this painting series I really came up with quite a while ago, and I just started kind of working on it about 3 years ago was the first one. And the idea is that I take portraits of people I know or portraits of people in general and paint them as if they were sculpted from marble, like the old masters like David. The idea kind of snowballed in my head to the point where, yep, I got to really do this. I asked a number of people if they wouldn't mind allowing me to use their face. One of them was my daughter, Incidentally, this whole painting series has taken quite a long time to develop. So if I have asked to use your beautiful face and if you have not seen anything and I have not used it, it's not for a lack of not wanting to. It's just that the series never really started up the way it should have. So I apologize to anyone who I've asked. Anyway, the first target for this painting series was my daughter, Emily. So I did this painting back in 2019, and there were some things about it that had gone sideways that I wasn't overly happy with, but it was okay. It was one of those instances where things went wrong, but they didn't go so far wrong that it wasn't a good painting at the end. Some of the things was the hair, the way that I treated the hair. I painted it more realistic than I should have. I wanted this really kind of carved marble wavy look. The other thing was the eyes. I debated for a long time about doing the Michelangelo type of pupil and iris, and I elected not to, and I never really liked that. So there was just a couple things here and there. The overall color I wasn't overly happy with as well. But none of those were catastrophic. None of those were like, that's a game breaker. I can work on some things on the next one. That was the idea behind that. So that was an instance where pulling the plug wasn't really on the table. It was okay the way it was. It's just a painting, and I'll move on and keep going from there. Where this became a problem was when I sprayed it with the clear coat. I can't remember for the life of me what clear I sprayed on this, but it reacted with the paint. It caused it to wrinkle and bubble up, and it was a serious problem. So that's a problem where there is no coming back from. There is no, well, it's kind of a cool look having it like that, or can I fix it? I couldn't do either. It was a mess. So I cut my losses and decided to just scrap the painting. So you can see there's a lot of sanding in here. I was gonna, well, I probably will anyway, just sand over this whole thing, reprime it, and use the board for something else. Fortunately, I didn't recycle this one because I wouldn't be able to do this video for you now. So I did save it. So that's how that one came out. So that leads us to the new one, this one down here. Now, this one has its own set of problems that I needed to kind of deal with or move on from. And first thing I want to do is I want to switch to camera view real quick because I want to show you the base on this. Okay, so here's the painting. So the base on this, I mixed up special because I thought I was going to be tricky with this. And what I did was I took a Createx Metallic Platinum, which I really like a lot, and then I added a little bit of Candy Slate Blue. Slate Blue isn't a color from them. I kind of make it up myself. It's candy black with some other colors in it to make it more bluish than purple, but that's really not the point. So I had this base color, which first off, I thought was dark enough. You can see it in the bottle. But when I sprayed it, this right here is the metallic base color right on her cheek. That is what it is. So it's a lot lighter because of the pearl. And I wasn't expecting that. I wanted it kind of darker. So that was the first thing. But again, here we are. Do I scrap the whole thing because of that or let it go? And it wasn't that bad, so I let it go. Now, I know this, but I didn't really think it was going to be that much of an issue. And what I knew about was when you have a pearl or a metallic, something really shiny, and you spray on it, the paint itself is matte. So it doesn't reflect really any light or shine in a way. The pearl paints, however, do. So when you tilt this, you can see the pearl. And what happens is the pearl lights up, but the paint stays dark, essentially. So like especially on this eye, it looks like she has a black eye right here. But when I tilt this down, that disappears because it becomes its normal tone. The other thing I realized too as I was working on this, because this really wasn't, I knew I'd be painting a lot of highlights on this. The highlights do the same thing. So in her hair, you can see the pearl kind of shining through in the dark areas, but then in the lighter areas, they just look like a painting. It just doesn't shine at all. So that sets up this really kind of weird thing in that the tones on her face, the shading on her face is going to look different from every angle. It really wasn't working for me. At first I was like, well, I'll push through and see what it looks like, but it really, knowing that I'd have to add more and more paint to it to get it to work, I would eventually lose all the pearl, which is the whole point of using it, to have some of it show through. The other thing, again, to pile on, this is the feel I wanted, this kind of bluish really white pearl, not the Michelangelo, kind of yellowish pearl. So it was leaning towards the yellowish, and I really, really wanted this. So that's where I got to the point where, like, okay, now is the time to cut my losses and start over on this, because it's really, a lot of it isn't going the way I want. And at the end, do I really want another painting that was just kind of like, well, that's not really what I wanted, but it's okay. I didn't want that for this. I really want this to kind of be the one. So I ended up restarting this whole thing. So here's that metallic platinum that I mixed up. So this one, I'm going to keep this. It's a neat color. It's not intentional, or it wasn't intentionally what I wanted, I guess. It came a little bit different. So what I ended up doing was I looked at the reference photo and picked this color here, or more like this color here, this bluish, really pale blue. And I mixed up a base color for that. And now that's going to be the base. There's no pearl in this at all, so I know I'm not going to get that weird, funky reflection type of thing going on. So here's the new board, ready to go. And I know this kind of looks like a light gray or even white, but it's not. Here is the original board, and you can see how vastly different they are. So this will give me a great base. Like I said, it'll give me this kind of blue right in here, this really pale blue. So now I'll be able to add highlights on this. I'll be able to add that very subtle yellowish reflection or translucency that I wanted to do. And it's going to come out the way I want it to. So I'm happy. Again, no mistake is without merit, because every mistake teaches you something. Now, I knew the thing about the pearl, but I also thought I could cheat a little bit. You can even see it down here. See how there's like this darker gray area right here? That's not dark gray. That's actually just the pearl. So when I tilt it, that goes away. So that's the stuff that I was like, I don't want that to be in the final painting. Like I said, I knew about the pearl. I kind of dealt with it before, but I didn't think there was enough on here to really affect it the way that it did. I was hoping to just give it a little bit of shimmer. Now at the end of this painting here, what I could always do is just add a very transparent layer of this, because this is basically just a little sparkle. And it depends on how much you build it up and to its opacity, to coverage, that will give it its effect. But if I just lightly go over the image of the statue with this, just so you get some of that sparkle, it's going to give me the effect that I'm looking for. So there you go. So that is what to do if things go sideways. When to pull the plug. Again, it's a really super personal thing. You'll know more than anyone else what your limits are and what you can get away with a fix. But again, keep your brain open. Again, the most important thing, I can't stress it enough, when things are really going sideways, just stop and take a step back and relax and give yourself some time to think about it before you make the next move. And it will definitely help you. All right. So again, thank you to my sponsors. You guys are amazing. Again, if you enjoyed this, you can certainly do the free way of supporting things around here and just hit that like and subscribe. That would mean the world to me. We are quickly approaching the 100th episode of Tech Tuesday. I will come up with something special for it. So thanks a lot, you guys. You guys are the best. I'm Steve Leahy. This is Tech Tuesday, and I'll catch you next time.